I never imagined my grandma's heartbreaking journey would inspire my own powerful transformation. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The phone rang. My heart dropped. The world outside turned into a hazy blur as I listened to the words I never wanted to hear. My grandma, the strongest woman I knew, was lying in a hospital bed, frail and gasping for breath. She had always been my rock, and now she was slipping away. Sitting in that cold waiting room, I could hear the beeping of machines, the hushed whispers of doctors, and the choking silence of my own fear. My hands trembled as I clutched the worn-out quilt she had made for me as a child. Its threads carried memories, her laughter, her warmth, her comforting embrace. It smelled faintly of lavender and love, but now it felt like a shroud. Just last week we were together. She shared stories of her youth, adventurous and wild, tales so vivid they seemed to leap from her lips. The lines on her face danced with each word, and her eyes sparkled with mischief. But now in that sterile room, a heavy shadow loomed over us. Her spirit, so vibrant, now flickered like a dying candle. I replayed her stories in my mind. The mysterious encounters, the unsettling happenings she often brushed off as coincidences. Grandma spoke of her grandmother's wish that she never forgot the old family heirloom, a pendant that supposedly held magical properties. She used to laugh it off, roll her eyes, but now it felt like a forgotten prophecy tugging at my heart. What if that pendant held the key to understanding her pain? The room buzzed silently around me, each minute stretching into an eternity as I felt the tide of time pulling. I recalled the day she showed me the pendant, a delicate silver trinket glimmering under the sunlight. I had a feeling it was ancient. Always wear it close to your heart, Shed said. I hadn't listened. I couldn't fathom how something so trivial could hold weight in a world crashing down on me. The door creaked open and a doctor entered, his face a mask of sympathy. My heart raced. Did they find a miracle? But the look in his eyes told a different story, a gentle warning. I felt a cold wave wash over me. What was happening? I wanted to scream, to shake him until the truth spilled out. But I couldn't move. My chest tightened. Your grandmother, he began, might not have much time. My world shattered. The walls around me closed in, suffocating. I watched as my dreams crumbled, memories floated away like leaves in the wind. My mind raced with questions, each one more painful than the last. What will I do without her? I could barely breathe. Then through my tears a flicker of resolve sparked. What if I could honor her? What if all those stories meant something? I needed answers. I needed that pendant. I could feel it calling out to me, urging me to discover its secrets. But deep down, a terrifying thought clawed at me. Was I strong enough to face whatever truth lay ahead? I wiped my tears, determination flooding my veins. I couldn't just sit back and wait for fate to decide my future. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The hospital seemed to warp and bend around me, its sterile lights too bright, the linoleum floor a blinding white. I slid off the chair and stood, the quilt trailing behind me like a tether to a past that was fast vanishing. With every step I took toward the door, a rising tide of fear washed over me. I needed to find that pendant. Perhaps it was more than a simple piece of jewelry. It could be a lifeline connection I so desperately craved. As I moved through the hallways, I felt lost among the crowds of worried faces and rushed staff. I pushed through the entrance and into the parking lot, the night air washing over me, a sharp contrast to the stale atmosphere I had just escaped. The world outside was alive. Stars twinkled overhead, and the moon cast a silvery glow over everything, yet I felt none of it. My mind spiraled inward, thoughts racing, drowning out the gentle whispers of the universe around me. He took a moment to gather my scattered resolve. I needed help. Perhaps someone could guide me. I remembered an old neighbor, Mrs. Landry, who had helped Grandma with her gardening. She often spoke of the family heirlooms and was known for her peculiar insights into the past. If anybody knew about that pendant and its significance, it would be her. I climbed into my car, the engine sputtering awake, a reflection of my own hesitance. Pulling out of the parking lot, I could feel determination pull me forward, even as sadness lurked like a shadow in the back seat. A wispy thought flitted through my mind: what if I discovered something I wasn't ready for? My mind fought against itself as I navigated the familiar streets leading to Mrs. Landry's home. When I arrived, the porch light glowed warmly, a beacon amidst the cool night. I rapped softly on the door, the sound echoing into the stillness. A moment later, Mrs. Landry's familiar figure appeared, her face lined with curiosity and concern. "Darling, what brings you here at this hour?" she asked, her voice like a soothing balm. "That it's Grandma," I managed to say, my voice cracking under the weight of the words. The floodgates opened, and before I could stop myself, I spilled everything: the hospital visit, the fear of losing her, and my desperate search for the pendant. Mrs. Landry listened closely, her blue eyes pooling with understanding. "You're strong, and your grandmother is proud of you. Let's talk over some tea," she said kindly, guiding me inside. As we settled into her cozy living room, I felt a flicker of serenity in the chaos swirling inside me. The warmth of the teacup steadied my hands as I recounted my grandmother's stories, her laughter echoing in my head. Mrs. Landry nodded along, her expression unwavering and soft. There was a comforting intimacy in sharing these memories, a sense of continuity even in grief. "I remember that pendant well," Mrs. Landry said after a moment of thoughtful silence. "Your grandmother believed it held power, something to protect her family. But it's not just about the pendant. It's the stories, the bonds, the love it represents. It's about the strength of the women in your family. You have that strength too." Her words wrapped around me like a warm embrace, but an ember of doubt flickered. "But what if the pendant reveals something about our past that I'm not ready to face?" I asked, my voice trembling. "That's a question only you can answer," she replied. "But remember, your grandmother faced struggles much greater than this. She found light even in darkness." Suddenly, Mrs. Landry's expression shifted as if the air had thickened with unspoken knowledge. "There's something else. Your grandmother left me a letter a few months ago. She wanted to make sure you received it if anything happened. I kept it safe, thinking she might just be thinking ahead. Would you like it now?" My heart raced, anticipation crashing over me in waves. Without waiting for my reply, she stepped toward an old wooden desk, her fingers trembling slightly on the drawer before producing a simple envelope. "Take your time," she said gently, handing me the letter. "But if there's one thing I know, it's that every ending is just another beginning. And sometimes the hardest truths lead to the greatest clarity." As I opened the letter, my breath steeped in expectation. The words beckoned me with an urgency I was unprepared for. Whatever wisdom Grandma had penned, I knew it would alter everything. The veils of the past pulled taut, and I felt a powerful surge within me. Then, with each word I read, a shocking revelation gripped me, sending shockwaves through my body. I gasped, my eyes darting back to Mrs. Landry, searching her face for answers, yet finding only an expression of sympathy mixed with trepidation. The gravity of the moment settled in my bones. In that instant I dropped the letter, feeling my heart seize. I was no longer certain if this path I had chosen to honor my grandmother would lead me to healing or plunge me further into despair. All I knew now was that the journey ahead would be intricate, laden with both hope and uncertainty. And I stood on the precipice, trembling, unsure if I would take the leap. The letter fluttered to the floor, and time seemed to bend around me. In that split second, I felt suspended between the weight of the revelation and the comforting embrace of Mrs. Landry's presence. The world outside, once vibrant and alive, grew dim as I grappled with the wave of emotions crashing over me. "Take a deep breath, sweetheart," Mrs. Landry urged gently, kneeling to retrieve the letter. As she offered it back to me, our fingers brushed, and I felt a jolt of connection, a reminder that I was not alone in this daunting moment. I can't," I stammered, pressing a hand to my chest, which thundered like a stampede. "What if I'm not strong enough to handle whatever this is?" Mrs. Landry's gaze pierced through my uncertainty. "Your grandmother faced unimaginable trials. Did you know she once sold her jewelry just to put food on the table? And yet every sacrifice she made was rooted in love. The truth may be painful, but it is also liberating. It was her gift to you, a chance to carry on her legacy." She settled back on the couch, giving me the space to gather my thoughts. Tentatively, I pulled the letter close again, the words almost shimmering with the memories of her spirit. Each stroke of ink felt like a whisper from the past, urging me forward despite the fear clutching at my heart as I read silently. Images of Grandma flooded my mind, her laughter melding with the scent of cinnamon rolls baking in the kitchen, her arms wrapping around me during storms that shook the very foundations of our lives. Those moments of warmth felt distant now, but I realized they still lingered, alive within my heart, like embers waiting to ignite. I reached the end of the letter. A surprising twist emerged from its folds. My grandmother had revealed a secret she carried for decades, one that shook the core of our family's narrative. Suddenly, the fabric of my identity felt frayed. The truth unraveled, threads carefully woven over the years. It spoke of choices made, of sacrifices that shaped our lineage, of a lineage entwined with those who were not just family but part of a darker history that transcended our understanding. It left me breathless, teetering on the edge of an abyss I had never known existed. "That's why your grandmother wanted you to have this," Mrs. Landry said softly, her voice laced with understanding. "She hoped that you would find the strength in her words, and not be afraid to confront the truths about your family. She believed you could redefine it, turn pain into purpose." I looked at her, the words pooling in my heart like rainwater in a thirsty field. "But I don't know if I can," I admitted, tears brimming in my eyes. "What if the truth only leads to more heartbreak?" "With every crack in the surface, new life emerges," she said gently. "You must embrace both the light and shadow. Only then can you grow. And remember, you're never alone in this. The love you feel for your grandmother is a powerful force. Let it guide you." A silence fell between us, heavy but swaddled in unspoken hope. I wanted to believe her words, to lean into the warmth of possibility that flickered faintly like a candle in a dark room. Yet the uncertainty of what lay ahead loomed like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. "I'll think about what you've said," I murmured, clutching the letter like a lifeline. I needed time to process, time to reflect on the storm of emotions surging within me. But just as I rose to leave, the phone rang, piercing through the charged silence. Mrs. Landry answered, and her face transformed, a mix of concern and apprehension overshadowing the moment. "Hello? Yes, this is she." I tuned out her words, my heart pounding in tandem with the phone call. A quick exchange, hushed but heavy. It felt like an eternity stretched between breaths, every second filled with anticipation. I shifted nervously from foot to foot, sensing the weight of impending news hanging in the air. After a moment, Mrs. Landry hung up and turned to me, her voice soft but resolute. "It's your father. He's in town and wants to see you." "Hesh is not well." My heart dropped like a stone into a deep dark pool. The father I had distanced myself from for years, why now? I felt like a ship lost at sea, the lighthouse flickering in and out of view, uncertainty swirling around me like fog. "Are you all right?" Mrs. Landry asked, concern etched on her features. I didn't know if I was all right or about to embark on another tumultuous chapter of my life, the weight of the pendant feeling heavier in my heart. Every thread of courage I thought I had summoned began to unravel. Hope felt like a fragile glass ornament, easily shattered. "I am not sure if I'm ready to face that," I admitted, my voice a whisper of vulnerability. Mrs. Landry reached out, resting her hand on mine. "You've faced so much already. If you choose to confront this, you'll do it with your grandmother beside you. Remember, love is never truly lost. It transforms and guides us forward." As her words enveloped me, a spark ignited within my chest. I could feel the faint echo of Grandma's strength urging me to make a choice. I was standing at a metaphorical crossroads, one path leading toward reconciliation, and the other toward a familiar pain. But could I summon the courage to embrace what was ahead? With the letter crumpled in my palm and uncertainty gnawing at my soul, I steeled myself for a decision that would peel back layers of my history, each choice intertwining with Grandma's earlier despair and hope. My journey wasn't just about the past, it was about embracing the potential for transformation. As I looked up at Mrs. Landry, I realized I had one more step to take, and I would take it, but how far would I go before the really hard truths came crashing down around me? The weight of the world felt like a boulder pressing down on my chest as I stepped out of Mrs. Landry's home, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows on the pavement. I held the crumpled letter tightly, its edges biting into my palm, an anchor in this chaotic moment. My mind raced with thoughts of my father, memories warped and tethered to pain, longing, and the desire for reconciliation that fought against the years of resentment swirling in me. Was I really ready to see him? For so long, the narrative of my life had been shaped by absence, by the unanswered questions and emotional void he left behind. To confront him now felt like stepping into a tempest, each gust of wind tugging at the seams of my carefully constructed world. And yet, as I made my way to the cafe we used to visit, a flicker of hope caught me off guard. Mrs. Landry's words whispered in the recesses of my mind, and for the first time, the prospect of healing felt like more than just a distant dream. But the thought of standing face to face with a man I'd spent years trying to forget quickly crashed against that flicker of hope, extinguishing it momentarily. Arriving at the cafe, I hesitated at the entrance, my heart racing as I surveyed the familiar space. Vintage posters adorned the exposed brick walls, the aroma of coffee enveloping me like a blanket of memories. The laughter, the warmth of the people who once filled these seats, now replaced by a pervasive silence. I spotted him in the corner, slumped over a cup of coffee, his hair thinning, and deep lines etched into his face, each telling a story of battle fought and lost. Was this the man I had once viewed through a lens of childhood admiration? He looked up as I approached, his eyes widening with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Hey," I managed, my voice faltering like a fragile thread snapping. "Hi," he replied, the greeting so simple yet heavy, like a rock tumbling into the pond of our past. The ripples of emotion stirred within us both, but neither of us knew what to say next. "I heard you're not well," I ventured tentatively, struggling to sound composed while my insides twisted in knots. He nodded, shrugging as if to dismiss it. "It's just a cold, really." But the weariness in his eyes contradicted the bravado of his words. "Don't brush it off," I said, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "It's not just a cold if you're reaching out for help." He sighed, dragging a hand through his hair, the gesture so reminiscent of the man I once knew. "I just wanted to see you to try and make things right." My breath caught in my throat, a cocktail of emotions brewing within me: anger, sorrow, longing, the bitter taste of many unspoken words that I had hoarded for years. "What do you mean by make things right?" I asked, my voice shaking like a fragile branch in a storm. He looked down at the table, avoiding my gaze, and I could see the weight of his shame, heavy like fog that refused to lift. "I know I haven't been the father you deserved. Trust me, I've carried that." "Why now?" I interrupted, unable to bottle up my hurt any longer. "Why wait until now, until you're sick, to show up?" "Because," he whispered, the weariness splitting his words, "I'm scared. I'm scared of what I've lost, of what might still be there if we let it, but I don't know if you can." His eyes finally met mine, pleading in a way that shook the foundations of my heart. I wanted to scream, to tell him how his choices had broken me, how I had felt like an orphan in my own family. Instead, silence draped over the table, a thick blanket woven from years of unspoken anguish. In that moment, the cafe faded away, leaving just the two of us in a landscape of memories painted in shades of gray and hints of what could have been. My heart raced as I felt the rumble of emotion stirring within me, twisting and turning, fighting for release. Just then, the door swung open, the bell jingling brightly in contrast to our heavy exchange. A woman entered, with a familiar laugh that made my breath hitch. In that instant, the world shattered. She looked strikingly like Grandma from her younger days, her presence a vivid testament to the link that still tied us together, across generations, dreams, and heartaches. "Excuse me," she said, her voice rich and warm, infused with hope. "You dropped this." She handed my father an old heirloom pendant, something I recognized, Grandma's, a glimmer of the past. "I found it just outside, and I thought it might mean something to you." His expression shifted dramatically, the joy mixed with confusion as he accepted the pendant. The air crackled with something profound, a remnant of hope igniting amidst our desolation. "Thank you," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. But my own heart thundered in my ears, caught in a tide of nostalgia and unanswered questions. The revelation of that pendant felt more fragile yet more potent than the letter. It was a tangible link to my grandmother, the loving tether that now felt frayed between the reality of my father and the echoes of her legacy. "Who are you?" I asked the woman, bewildered that she had just appeared out of thin air. There was something strikingly familiar in her eyes, a profound connection that sent ripples of recognition through me. "I am," she began, pausing as her gaze flicked between my father and me, as if trying to piece together a puzzle centuries in the making. "Am someone who believes in the power of family, even when it seems lost." As the words sank in, everything shifted. The weight of the moment swelled, overwhelming me in a wave of revelations that held promise yet carried the weight of history as well. I needed to know. I needed to understand the price of healing, just as Grandma had endured her own trials with every ounce of courage I had. I opened my mouth to ask the question that hung heavily in the air. Not just for me but for the woman who had dropped the pendant and for my father, for the three of us intertwined in this web of love and pain. What is the truth that we've forgotten? Yet before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, shattering our intimate moment. My father turned pale, and the urgency in the air thickened, as if the universe itself was trying to draw us apart before we could confront what lay ahead. The ground trembled beneath us and my heart raced, the stirring of an impending storm befitting the epicenter of my family's secrets. And just like that, the hope for connection melted away, uncertainty washing over me anew as I braced for the fallout that was about to unfold. My father's face grew ashen, and I could feel the skies darkening around us all. What new layers of our past were about to emerge? And could we face whatever came next with the fragile threads of connection still intact? Each tick of the cafe's clock echoed in my ears, a reminder that time was slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. The woman's presence, so unexpected yet stirring, hung in the air while uncertainty rippled around us. My father's face, pale and tense, hinted at both fear and yearning, shifting the balance of our already fragile conversation into a precarious dance of fate. "What's going on back there?" I asked, my gaze darting toward the kitchen, where the clamor of confusion now engulfed our moment. Yet, in the pit of my stomach, I felt an unsettling sense of anticipation. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, drawing a breath, trying to find grounding in the chaos. The woman stepped closer, her presence almost magnetic. "Life has a way of unveiling the truths we often shy away from," she said, her voice low yet steady. It was a statement weighted by experience, resonating with the stories we dared not tell. Sometimes we must confront what we fear most. I turned to my father, who now gripped the table, his knuckles whitening. "What do you know about this? Who are you?" I demanded, the pleading in my voice masking the desperate need for answers. He swallowed hard, and for a moment, I thought I had seen a flicker of recognition pass between them. "Just some stranger," he uttered, his gaze dropping as a storm brewed behind those weary eyes. "Shesh is just someone who saw something I didn't. Simeon who remembers the family that was lost." My heart clenched at his words. I didn't want to hear about loss. I wanted to hear about hope, about the healing my soul craved. But the spectral clouds of our shared past refused to lift. Suddenly, the kitchen door swung open, and a frantic waitress darted out, her apron stained and her face flushed. "Are you all okay? We had a close call." The stove caught fire for a moment. "Everything's under control now." Panic ebbed off her words like a wave retreating from the shore. But the sudden burst of chaos felt like the adrenaline-fueled heartbeat of fate itself. My father instinctively reached for my arm, his grip fierce yet hesitant, as if trying to ground both of us in the reality we had long avoided confronting. "I don't want to go back into darkness," he said, his voice trembling as he found courage in the open vulnerability. "I know I've messed up more than I can even express, but I've never stopped thinking about you, about the family." I leaned back, feeling a bitter taste on my tongue, the intensity of those words sparking something within me, like embers lying dormant beneath ashes. The waitress moved past us, but before she disappeared back into the chaos, the woman turned to her with an earnest gaze. "Do you mind if I talk to him for a moment?" The waitress hesitated, her brow furrowing, yet there was an unspoken understanding. "Sure thing, I'll check on the other tables." With that, she vanished, leaving us in the eye of the storm. "Do you really want to know the truth?" the woman asked my father, her tone gentle yet profound. The tension in the air was electric, as if the space between us had become a thread woven of unspoken secrets. He nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "More than anything, then you need to remember. What happened the night your mother left? Those details, everything you buried alive. Look inside and confront the ghosts that have held you hostage for too long." The woman's eyes sparkled, offering a glimmer of compassion mingled with tough love. I barely breathed, straining to process the implications of her words. This was no ordinary meeting. This was an impending unveiling of truths long concealed by the specter of tragedy. My heart beat erratically as my mind spun with memories, a tidal wave crashing over me as I tried to grasp what truths would surface. Suddenly, Something inside me flicked like a switch. I couldn't sit idly as they both veered toward the edges of revelation without me. "What are you talking about?" I blurted, my voice raw and pleading. "What happened to Grandma? To you? What did she hide from us?" The woman turned her gaze to me, the warmth of her expression breaking through the harsh shadows of my apprehension. "Your grandmother's heart was noble, but her life was woven with struggles. I know things about her, about the decisions she made that impacted all of us, about the love she tried to shield, and in doing so, created a rift that may never fully heal unless confronted." The truth sparked inside me like wildfire, filling me with a mix of dread and intrigue. My father's face crumpled as if the weight of decades suddenly clawed back to the surface. It was more than I had ever expected, more than I was prepared to unearth, and yet, as ready as I could ever be that "I can't lose you too," he murmured, his voice breaking, revealing the fear that lived beneath the resentment and regret. The sight of Hyman abandoned ship adrift in a sea of shame pierced deeper than any words left unspoken. "Then let's find a way to navigate this together," I said, feeling the tremor of hope resurface amidst the storm. But even as those words escaped my lips, a warning bell rang clear in my mind. This confrontation would not just reveal fractures of our past, but resurrect the demons that wielded their control over us. And that moment, the door swung open once more, an ominous figure stepped through, and the room turned still. My heart dropped as I recognized the hard-set gaze that seemed to pierce through the clouds of our fragile reunion. It was a face I hadn't seen in years, the face of my mother, a ghost from my childhood now materializing at the precipice of my father's reckoning. The layers of truth began to unravel before me, spinning the web of my family's history into a new and terrifying design. What other truths would she reveal? And how far back would the haunting shadows stretch? My heartbeat echoed painfully, the future uncertain, as the weight of everything dreams, hopes and pasts intertwined came rushing at me like an unstoppable tide. A hush descended over the cafe, as if the very air held its breath in anticipation of what lay ahead. The atmosphere, once thick with tension, transformed into an electric stillness, each person held captive by the sight of the apparition hovering in the doorway. My mother stood there, framed by the fading light of the afternoon sun, casting an ethereal glow that sharpened the contrast between relief and dread etched on my face. "Why are you here?" I managed to whisper, my heart thundering against my ribcage, both curious and terrified of the answers she might bring. The woman beside my father seemed to tighten her grip on the moment, aware of the seismic shift that had just occurred. "I had to come," my mother replied, her voice an echo from a past I hadn't realized I was still mourning. "There are things I need to explain, things I should have said long ago." The cafe's ambience, once a refuge against our tangled past, felt now like a small, confined space ready to burst. My father's grip on the table tightened as he turned to her, the remnants of old emotions flickering in his gaze. "You left without an explanation," he stammered, the hurt spilling from his lips like jagged glass. "And you built walls too high to climb," she countered gently, pain shimmering behind her eyes. I wasn't the only one running from the truth. In that moment, the burden of our unspoken sorrows transcended generations, manifesting as a gossamer web that connected us through love and loss. I yearned to traverse the expanse that separated us. "What's stopping us from speaking the truth now?" I implored, needing desperately to bridge this invisible chasm. But in her eyes I saw the hesitation of years spent in silence, the shadows of unhealed wounds. "Sometimes the truth isn't a bomb, it's a knife, and I've learned that too late," she whispered, pain wrapping around her words. Tears pooled in my father's eyes, unguarded and raw, as he searched her face for the woman he once loved and lost. "You should have trusted me enough to face it together. I would have borne that pain." The hurt in his voice ricocheted through our small cluster, and I felt the urge to reach out to him, to be the anchor that kept him from drifting back into despair. "Let's start now," I urged, feeling a swell of courage within me, desperate for frankness to guide us through the wreckage of our histories. My mother took a deep breath, steadying herself as if preparing for the weight of a truth she had long avoided. "Your grandmother. There were things even I didn't understand about her." She paused, faltering at the edge of a memory that seemed to pain her. "She bore secrets, the kind that can break a family if left unexamined. She had to hide many truths so we wouldn't walk in the dark. But dishonesty was her legacy." A shudder coursed through me at the thought of Grandma, loving figure in my life who had unknowingly cast shadows instead of light. What kind of secrets? I asked, my voice small, grappling with the realization that the person I idealized could be far more complex. She had made choices that altered our lives, my mother continued. I was a child who didn't know the weight she carried. When I became a mother myself, I failed to see that I was perpetuating the very cycle she thought she was breaking. Were you running too? The disbelief slipped from my tongue before I could censor my thoughts, my chest constricting further with this new revelation. Yes, she admitted, the vulnerability in her voice like a shatter of glass. To protect you, to shield myself. I thought creating distance between us would help us heal, but in reality, it only wove more distance. My father, visibly shaken, seemed to absorb her words like intimate confessions meant solely for him. Shall we untangle this together? He breathed, the question hanging between them like a dim light in a darkened room as I watched my parents grapple with their past. A question tangled in my mind, a question emerging from the shadows. What if revealing these truths tears us apart instead? I dared to voice my fear, echoing through the moment, stirring doubt. Beneath the surface, my mother's eyes caught mine, a reflection of shared pain. That's the risk we must take. It's the only way to reclaim our colliding histories. In a swirl of emotions, the room consumed us, its corners cloaked in uncertainty. I sensed the walls around my heart trembling, the fear of what this healing process would unveil. Words had the power to uplift, but they could cut deep as well. Will we emerge on the other side, scarred but stronger? Or will our truths sever the tenuous bonds that remain? Just as I prepared for our shared unveiling, the door swung open once again. A figure stepped into the cafetal, and imposing, with a palpable energy that electrified the air. It was a silhouette I recognized instantly, but never expected to see again. The appearance of my estranged uncle, the last piece of our family puzzle, and the harbinger of secrets that could unravel everything. Did you really think you could bury the past without consequences? He challenged, his voice grating against the vulnerability we had just begun to open. I felt the very foundation of our fragile reunion begin to quake. The air was thick with unresolved loyalties and riddled histories, not just my parents but my own, and the weight of what lay ahead felt almost too much to bear. The fight for healing had only just begun. The room fell into a stunned silence, the air heavy with memories and unspoken fears as my uncle stood at the threshold, casting a long shadow over our fragile moment of reckoning. His presence, unexpected and jarring, felt like a thunderclap after an ominous lull. I swallowed hard, caught between the comfort of familial love and the tension of brooding turmoil. My mother's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and trepidation washing over her features. Eli, she whispered, disbelief lacing her tone, as though she were afraid that even saying his name might summon the specters we'd long tried to ignore. Yes, it's me, he answered, his voice thick with a simmering intensity that hinted at years of resentment and regret. I didn't come here to disrupt your little gathering, but it appears that truth is knocking at the door whether you're ready or not. My heart raced, the familiar rush of anger bubbling up within me. We're trying to talk about our past, I insisted, defending the delicate truce we had just begun to weave. There's no need for confrontation. Eli took a step closer, his sharp gaze landing on my father, who remained fixated on the floor. Is that so? Because it seems to me that you're all teetering on the precipice of a truth that's far uglier than you want to admit. The tension in the room thickened. My mother's hands trembled slightly, and my father's shoulders hunched as though reinforcing an armor long discarded. I glanced back and forth between them, a chasm of doubt threatening to swallow us whole again. We're just trying to understand, I offered weakly, hoping to bridge the growing divide. Eli scoffed, crossing his arms as his body exuded defiance. Understanding? It's too late for that. You think you can stitch back the fabric of your family with mere conversations? Each of you is filled with your own horror stories, and they're not as separate as you believe. Stop it. My voice, fueled by frustration and fear, surged into the space between us. This isn't helping. We have enough pain without you adding to it. Ella's eyes darkened. Do you really think this is all there is? Your grandmother's legacy is still alive in you all. And it's a legacy of deception and betrayal. Unless you're prepared to face it, you'll only be spooling threads of misery until they ensnare you. I felt my stomach drop as his words struck deep. The notion that Grandma's shadows reached into our lives like twisted vines around a once thriving tree unsettled me. My mother's shoulders quivered beneath the weight of years gone by, while my father clenched his jaw, the stoicism of a man who had long mastered the art of silence. "Let's listen," my mother stated softly, a spark of resolution igniting within her. "If there are things we haven't spoken about, things that require us to confront our history head-on, perhaps he's right." "But Mom," I began, panic coursing through me. "We don't need him to do that. We're doing this together. This is a family we haven't fully grappled with yet," she said, her voice steadying. "Maybe if we dive deeper, we will finally be able to let go." My heart sank at her words, knowing how fragile our new venture was. Eli was like a well of buried secrets, each drop of truth soured by years of painful recollection. "What do you want?" I asked him, wary of the answer. "I want you all to understand the real cost of your ignorance," he replied, his demeanor shifting. "The real cost of silence. I was there after all. I saw Grandma's true self, and if you think you're ready to face the mirror, then maybe I'm the one who can help you see." The cafe felt suddenly smaller, the walls closing in as centuries of family trauma loomed above us, a specter waiting to unleash its whispers amongst us. I desperately searched for any thread of hope, a way to navigate through the impending storm. "Can't we just move forward?" I asked, feeling the tremors of dread begin to unfurl deep within me. "Can't we just leave the past behind?" "No." Ella's response snapped like a whip, echoing in the hushed cafe. "Moving forward without accountability is like building a house on sand. It will collapse." My mother exchanged a glance with my father, one filled with an understanding that transcended the present moment. "If there are truths to face, let's face them together." The determination in her voice both terrified and excited me, a flicker of hope reluctant to ignite against the harsh winds of uncertainty. Just as I felt a fragile bond rekindling, Eli glanced over his shoulder, as if sensing something lurking outside the door of the cafe. "You'd better hurry. There's more coming out of the shadows than just dusty memories." Before I could ask what he meant, there was a loud crash and the door burst open, this time revealing not just a figure but two. A woman I had never seen before and a young girl, her face pale and ashen, eyes wide with fear. The sight of them rocked me to the core, for the atmosphere thickened with an unspoken understanding, the kind that shrouded the air before a storm. Eli turned sharply, the mask of bravado slipping. "This is not what I intended," he muttered, realization dawning on his face. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, heart racing, dread pooling deep within me as the woman stepped forward. Her expression resolute despite the weariness etched in her features. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words that emerged held the weight of 1,000 truths, ready to unravel everything we had tried to hold together in this fragile space. And in that instant, I knew our family struggles, the legacies of our parents, and the remnants of our grandmother's choices were about to converge in ways we could never have foreseen. The storm was upon us, and there would be no escape. The cafe felt more precarious than ever, each breath heavy with anticipation. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of the woman and the child who stood before us, both radiating an energy that felt too raw, too intense for this space laden with our own memories. Eli's expression shifted from defiance to something unmarried, a man adrift in a sea of chaos he had summoned. "Who are they?" I managed to choke out. I felt as if I were being pulled down a dark well, each word a stone thrown in, echoing eerily against my fears. With trembling hands, the woman pointed to the girl beside her. "My name is Clara," she said, her voice quivering but steady. "And this is my daughter, Lily. We've come to find answers." "Answers to what?" My mother's voice cut through the silence, authoritative yet tinged with a softness that came from years of protective instinct. The woman's eyes glistened with the threat of tears, yet there was a lighthouse's resolve behind them. "To the pain that has haunted our families for generations. To the mysteries that wove their way through both our lineages. To the truth of what your grandmother did." "Enough." Eli stepped forward, his tone no longer brimming with the pompous bravado I'd seen moments before. "You shouldn't have come here, Clara. They aren't ready for this." "Ready for what?" I pressed, the anger flickering into anxiety. "What do you know about our grandmother?" She was more than a matriarch. She was a keeper of secrets, a woman of stories, both told and untold. Clara's voice rose in urgency as she spoke, her face a map of pain and longing. "And she made choices that rippled through our lives while yours were lived in ignorance of the damning consequences. We deserve to be part of that story, just as much as you." A shiver coursed through me, as if a breeze had escaped from the very shadows we were trying to confront. What choices? The question hung in the air, fraught with trepidation. Lily clutched her mother's hand, wide eyes full of both fear and curiosity, drawing me closer to the storm that was brewing. On the surface, it might seem like a rift of time had separated us, but your grandmother's actions, they forged connections between families that were never meant to exist. Clara swallowed hard. She had ties to ours, ties that go beyond mere blood. She made promises that fractured so many lives, including Lily's. What do you mean? I felt lightheaded from the unraveling truths, grasping for stability. My family had spent too long pretending that our bonds were solely woven by blood. Your grandmother gave your family hope while stealing from ours, Clara said, bitterness seeping through her words. You think your pain is unique, but it's an echo of our own. When she passed, she took a part of us with her. My mother believed in the lies she spread. Ellis' shoulders fell, and his expression melted into one of remorse. I thought you had found peace, Clara. But that isn't true, is it? It's never that simple. Your family doesn't know the full weight of her legacy, and frankly, I don't think they're prepared for the truth. She turned to us, eyes blazing with a fervor that was both terrifying and compelling. Will you turn your back on this? Will you let history repeat itself? In that moment, I saw uncertainty reflected in my parents' faces. The strength of our family bonds felt fragile against the weight of a past I had known nothing about. What do you want us to do? I spoke in a whisper, voice wavering at the precipice of decision, a chasm of clarity and confusion unfolding before me. We want you to understand, truly understand, that the only way to move forward is by confronting everything your grandmother left behind, Clara declared, leaning forward, passion flaring in her eyes. Let us join you. We can share our stories, our truths, and start to untangle these decades of pain together. The room was electric with emotion. I wanted to leap forward to embrace her sincerity, but fear anchored me to the spot. What did it mean to invite their pain into my family's life? Felt too dangerous, too volatile. What about the lies? My father's voice broke through, the tension raw and strained. Will this process only breed more suffering? Will we find unity? Or will it only expose more wounds? Clara's expression softened, a flicker of understanding illuminating her features. Sometimes wounds must be laid bare to heal fully, but you must choose if you're brave enough to do it. Before I could articulate a response, something flickered at the periphery of my consciousness, a ghostly connection through the shared history of our families. The room felt like it was closing in around me, shadows twisting, seeking something long buried, something unspeakable. Just then, Lily took a hesitant step forward, her small voice breaking the tension that had bound us all. Please, she whispered, if there are secrets, I want to know them too. I don't want my story to be incomplete. All eyes turned to Lily, and in that moment a profound silence enveloped us. A child's plea for connection hung in the air, weaving through the fraying threads of our lives. As I glanced at my parents, uncertainty simmered in their eyes, fear locked in. The truth waited just beneath the surface, and whatever came next might well rip apart whatever fragile peace we thought we'd managed to build. Will you accept my family into yours? Clara asked, voice laced with hope, vulnerability, and the burden of her own despair. Or do we return to being strangers, forever haunted by what could have been? It was in that moment of uncertainty, a chance for both reconciliation and potential annihilation, that I felt the walls tremble, the air thick with the impending storms of truth. And just as I was about to respond, a loud crash echoed from the cafe entrance, drawing all of our attention and creating a chasm of fear that swallowed both our pasts and our futures whole. The cafe doors swung open violently, the force of their collision with the wall sending shudders through the room. Everyone turned, eyes wide, hearts racing, as a tall figure burst through the threshold. The chaos spilled into the calm before our storm, the warmth of the cafe suddenly interrupted by an icy wind of uncertainty. Eli. The voice called out, sharp and accusatory, slicing through the palpable tension. The newcomer was a man, stern, wild-eyed, with an unmistakable intensity that made my stomach drop. His chest heaved as he stepped forward, wild hair framing a face etched with resolve and anguish. You've let this go too far, Sebastian, Eli whispered, his voice laced with disbelief, a mixture of surprise and wary dread. What are you doing here? Saving you from yourself, Sebastian replied, casting a steely gaze around the cafe. as if seizing the secrets written in the anxious faces surrounding him. My heart pounded. It felt as if a bolt of lightning had struck the core of our gathering. The storm of emotions we were grappling with darkened with the arrival of this new presence, a fresh wave crashing into our already tumultuous sea. "Who is he?" Clara asked, tension vibrating in her voice. She shifted slightly to shield Lily behind her, protectiveness evident in her every movement. "Someone who knows all too well what our grandmother did," Eli replied, tension coiling tighter in his throat, as if struggling against a tide of regret. "Sebastian is family." The words hung in the air, colliding with our burgeoning understanding of shared histories. Eyes darted between Clara and Sebastian, and a flicker of recognition sparked. The fabric of our intertwined lives was beginning to unravel. "Family?" Clara repeated, incredulous. "Is that supposed to make this better? Your family's secrets have already torn apart mine." Ignoring her outburst, Sebastian focused on Eli. "We don't have time for this," he said, voice low but urgent. "I overheard what she's telling you. They'll only drag you deeper into something you don't understand." Deep down I felt a pull toward this intruder, a mix of curiosity and dread. My heart knew all too well the weight that Clara carried, and yet standing before us now was a storm, a force of nature threatening to uproot the fragile truths we were merely starting to confront. "Why should we believe you?" I confronted Sebastian, my instincts alight with both fear and resolve. "What do you know about the consequences of the past that they don't?" "Because I'm the one who has been left to pick up the pieces," he shot back, eyes flaring with the kind of pain that leaves scars across a soul. "I witnessed the aftermath of her choices. I lost everything because of the very promises your grandmother made. I'm not here to shield Eli but to protect you all from what he's trying to invite into your lives." The cafe felt smaller, gravity pulling us closer to the eye of the storm, emotions swirling around like the maelstrom of the unknown. I looked over at Clara, who stood resolute yet anguished. Her desire to bond with us softened against the sharpness of Sebastian's fury, revealing the dichotomy of our journeys. "History cannot be changed, but what I can do is prevent history from repeating itself," he continued, his gaze now shifting to Clara. "You want answers? Fine, but be prepared to face the darkness." "Then let us face it together," Clara insisted, her voice rising with a desperate determination that echoed in the hollows of my heart. I admired her strength, maddened by the juxtaposition of her courage against Sebastian's foreboding presence. "This isn't a game, Clara. You don't know what you're asking for." Sebastian's voice dropped, softening as he stepped closer. His eyes locked onto hers in a fierce challenge. "You think you're ready to confront ghosts? They won't just show you the truth. They'll consume you." A tremor of revelation shook through me. What lies buried beneath our family's intertwined histories? The budding hope spun into threads of anxiety, understanding that peeling back these layers might reveal wounds far deeper than I ever anticipated. "Don't want to be consumed," I whispered, the fear lodging in my throat, raw and real. "But I can't ignore this either. If there are truths that could change everything, how can we not look for them?" A moment of silence cloaked our gathering, every heartbeat as one, tethered by shared uncertainty. Just then, Lily broke through the crystalline silence. "I'm not afraid," she exclaimed, her small voice determined and fearless. "I want to know who I am." And on that note, the weight of her innocence, her untainted hope washed over me like a bomb. How could we allow the ghosts of the past to steal her right to discover her story? But before any of us could respond, Sebastian's sharp intake of breath rippled through the cafe, his eyes piercing as he turned slightly toward the doorway. The shadows had begun to stretch, curling like tendrils toward us, a heaviness descending that felt out of place. "Invasive Eli," he warned, tension coiling in the air. "We're not alone." As if the universe itself sought to confirm his words, the front door creaked slowly open again, revealing figures cloaked in darkness, their presence simultaneously mysterious and foreboding, new heralds of the stories that had long been buried within our families. "What now?" I murmured, adrenaline racing through me as the lines of fate began to blur once more. My heart quickened, every instinct urging me to prepare for whatever revelation they might bring, for the hour of reckoning was upon us, and with it, the weight of decisions we had yet to make. The dim light of the cafe flickered, casting shadows that danced ominously across the walls, as if the very fabric of our lives was unraveling. I felt the weight of stares bearing down on me, every gaze a silent question. What would this new chapter reveal? And were we ready for the truth that lay ahead? In the doorway stood two figures, cloaked in somber expressions reminiscent of the ghosts we had been trying to lay to rest. My heart thundered as I recognized one of the figures, a man whose sharp features and piercing eyes were hauntingly familiar. That was not a memory I anticipated. This was my estranged cousin, Nathan, a name buried under years of neglect and family discord. Beside him was someone I had never met, a woman with an air of resilience, yet a profound sadness that emanated from her. Nathan held her hand tightly, as if grounding his courage to face the storm we all stood upon the brink of. With my heart pounding in my ears, I could only watch as this unexpected intervention unfolded. Eli. Nathan's voice cut through the silence, steady but laced with urgency. You can't keep hiding from this. It's time for all of us to confront the truth, the pain that Grandma left behind, the burdens we unknowingly carry, and the unknown legacies we are bound to inherit. The air thickened with tension, the intensity of his words weighing heavily around us. I glanced at my parents, uncertainty etched into their expressions, and at Clara, whose unwavering resolve felt like a beacon amidst the confusion. Each new arrival intensified the swirling storm of emotions, and the promise of revelation loomed like an unsteady bridge, daring us to cross. Why now? Eli snapped, his vulnerability momentarily eclipsed by defiance. Why come here when all this chaos is already crashing over us? You had your chance to confront this. His eyes hardened, betraying the fight in him, a fight born from years of pain. Why drag us into more shadows? Nathan took a step forward, resolve reflecting in his features. Because it's not just you anymore. This storm belongs to all of you's very promise broken. Every truth glossed over. We are part of this family history whether we like it or not. I felt the collective breath of the cafe hitch at his declaration. The air hummed with shared recognition. The woman beside him squeezed his hand, her presence almost ethereal. And we deserve to be part of the healing. Just as much as you do, she said softly, her eyes glistening like the twilight dimming outside. Every thread of this family's history needs acknowledgement for the wounds to truly begin healing. We can't build upon a foundation of silence any longer. A silence blanketed the room, heavy with unspoken truths, as I wrestled with the reality of our situation, our family, tangled in unbreakable knots forged from years of hiding and fear. The notion of breaking down those barriers sent ripples of anxiety through my chest. Fine, I said, my voice trembling yet firm. Let's finally unravel this. If we're going to tackle what's left unexamined, we need to face this together. My heart raced as I felt the weight of what lay ahead, a river of hope mixing with dread. I knew this could bring both clarity and chaos. Eli looked at me, uncertainty shadowing his countenance. Are you sure you want this? You'll be forced to confront family secrets buried so deep that they might sprawl into your lives in ways we can't even imagine. Do you really want to drag them into the fold? Yes, I affirmed, breathing through the swell of vulnerability that threatened to overwhelm me. We need to face our truths, whether it's through pain or joy. If we want healing, we have to embrace the journey, no matter how unsteady it becomes. Gasps echoed throughout the cafe, ghosts of old grievances whispering through the air. I glanced at Clara and Nathan, who nodded in silent agreement, their eyes gleaming with shared determination. Every thread between us had been forged from the same fabric of heartache and love, and perhaps our stories wove a tapestry greater than we could comprehend. As if sensing our collective resolve, an electric energy crackled throughout the space. The air shimmered with possibility, urging us to step forward into the unknown. Just then, the waitress returned, bearing a coffee pot and pausing mid-step, captivated by the palpable tension in the air. Are we witnessing some kind of intervention? She asked softly, half joking, but the undertone of seriousness in her voice grounded our growing momentum. Something like that, I replied, my resolve firming. We're finally excavating the truths that matter most, even if it's terrifying. Life isn't just a timeline of events. It's a beautifully woven narrative that we must all embrace. The woman beside Nathan added, drawing my gaze with her calm yet profound presence. A sigh echoed from Nathan. Let's start now, before we lose the bravery we've mustered. We stood like a constellation of our shared histories, each of us connected in purpose and strength, poised at the edge of a precipice just waiting to take the plunge together. In this tapestry of life, the worn threads, the fraying edges, they all matter, Clara murmured as we braced ourselves for what came next. for they remind us that the beauty of our family lies in both scars and stories. The cafe felt full of past ghosts and present soldiers, full of painful decisions and hopeful beginnings. Our hearts beat in sync, reverberating against the silence. The daunting task ahead was upon us, and with resolute courage, we prepared to dive into the depths of our shared stories. As we began, I knew one thing for certain. In order to understand each other, we would have to embrace every part of our histories, the laughter, the loss, the love, the shadows, because only by facing them could we finally find the light we so desperately sought. And as the air thick with history shimmered around us, the wind seemed to echo a shared understanding, a promise that, together, we would honor the legacy of those who came before us, and in doing so, create a new chapter woven through the very fabric of our souls. In that moment, all fears of the unknown were eclipsed by the undeniable strength of our bond, a bond powerful enough to transcend the past, healing the wounds that threatened to tear us apart. And perhaps, just perhaps, we would find our way to redemption and forgiveness, threading our stories together into something truly whole once more. Because, as truth has its way of doing, it became evident that we were all bound by love, whether through blood or choice, united in the ever-expanding journey of healing that would guide us forward. Every stitch carries a story, and every story deserves to be told. And in that collective understanding, I found solace. I wasn't just a keeper of Grandma's legacy. I was now a herald of our family's future. And without a doubt, I was ready to embrace it.